Solorzano, co-founder and CEO of Allevi. Founded in 2014, Allevi creates tools and solutions to design, engineer, and build with life. Ricky's going to talk to us today about plans for a new plug-and-play bioprinting extruder on the ISS. So with that, Ricky, do you want to take the wheel?
Sure thing. Hey, Rachel. Thank you, everyone, for joining. As Rachel said, I'm very excited to be here. It's always great to be part of the space community. I think it's a very exciting community, one that thinks about making things that were previously impossible possible. And I hope today to explain a little bit about Allevi, but also as well about how, as a terrestrial company, we think about entering into space and how we think about providing value not only for the space station, but to our users on the ground. So let's see if I can control this here. Let's see. There we go. So we started Allevi back in 2014 with this idea to make it easier to design and engineer 3D tissues, especially 3D biology. And we did so by thinking about empowering our users, really allowing them to be able to print and pattern cells in 3D to solve some of the biggest challenges, whether it's novel drugs or novel medical devices. And we really believe that bioprinting is poised to change the way we do medicine. And so what is a bioprinter? Just as the basics. So a 3D bioprinter is basically a 3D printer, except instead of printing plastic, it prints bioinks in cells or biomaterials in cells. And bioinks really are just materials that cells can thrive in, that they can consider that they're in an environment like the body. And a lot of what we say a lot of times is being able to print the body outside the body. So why is it valuable? Well, bioprinting really allows the ability to get cells into patterns. And so our entire bodies have patterns everywhere. And so traditionally speaking, as in the top left, instead of studying cells in a random orientation, you're able to use bioprinters to begin to align them in whether lines or circles or dots in significant geometries, per se in the top right. And that has tremendous value in terms of having greater physiological relevance or having the cells perform more accurately in the dish. And so what we can also see is that bioprinters can take materials that were first considered to be that were just random slabs, and instead of having them as kind of just a gel, they can take these materials of interest and begin to pattern them in relevant physiological shapes, like a heart valve, a tricuspid valve, a knee, and these are more macro-based geometries, but this has potential to think about custom-based implants, and it's a really, really exciting future for us as we think about being able to create novel medical devices. So what is Allevi? Allevi, well, we make an experience for users to be able to design and engineer 3D tissue, and it starts with the hardware, and then it goes on into the wetware or the consumables. So, and last, we also provide the software. And so I'm going to try to do something here. Let me see if it allows me to do it. I'm going to share a small video a little bit about kind of some of the things that we design. So we really build our systems to be very powerful, but yet very easy to use, and it's really one of the things that we're most proud of, being able to offer to our community of users the access to bioprinting in a very easy way, but still being able to achieve a tremendous amount of new science. The other thing that we provide is being able to, we've come a long way in terms of identifying what protocols and what materials are most important for specific types of tissues. So if a researcher comes to us and says, oh, we're interested in a liver, or we're interested in kidney, or we're interested in lung, then we have a foundation, we have a basis to say, these are some of the most interesting protocols, and these are even some of the most interesting publications that we've seen for people to grow on the science and really be able to achieve being able to get significant geometries with cells and have them perform in a relevant fashion or unique fashion for that specific type of tissue. We've done a lot of work to partner with different companies, and that's both on the general life science side, but also on the bioink side. Really, the bioink field is an incredible one in terms of how much innovation is being done there, but being able to identify what are some of the best bioinks to pair or to provide for specific types of tissues has been a lot of the work that we've done. And so doing that in tandem with some of the bioink companies and developing these easy to use protocols or easy to use experiences, something we're very proud of and that we provide as well. Last, I would say our software is something we're tremendously proud of. I think a big thing about getting bioprinting to become more accessible to everyone has been, how do we standardize and how do we allow someone who doesn't really know a lot about bioprinting come to an experience and be able to have themselves walk through what are the important things to think about, what are the steps that someone needs to be able to consider to say, okay, I want to be able to design. I first have to think about the design, then I have to think about the materials, and then so from beginning even to end, even after that, to think about the analysis, the software really provides that environment for someone to come who doesn't have a lot of knowledge about bioprinting and be able to successfully obtain a print and achieve that novel science, which is always something that we're very much trying to empower people's success. So I had another video, and I'll play it. It's a short video, but also about our software. So it's so we've done. The software is a great tool. It's a great place. I hope the video shows. It has the parameters. The most important things are presented, while the things that are more complex to bioprinting, we've masked, we've standardized, and we've made it this kind of very easy to use but very powerful experience. And last, to finish off, we have a tremendous community that we pride ourselves in. We serve over 350 labs around the world. We've seen growing number of publications, 300% year over year, which just shows the science that we're doing is impactful, it's relevant, it's having, we're working together with our users to understand what are some of the best applications, where's some of the best science going. And so people do everything from brain to liver to heart to kidney and all kinds of user profiles. So very, very proud of our community. But today, I'd also like to focus on one of our specific projects, very exciting project, which we call the ZeroG Project. And so it is, I think, something that you'll find in the space community. It takes time, and it's definitely been an idea we've been working on for some time, but we're very excited as to where it's going. And I also want to speak a little bit about, how we as a company, because I think one of the things you'll see today as well is that there's different stages as to where companies are in their evolution in terms of getting to the space station. We're on the beginning end, and that's probably why I think we're excited to be going first. But first off, why space? And we see it as our ultimate goal as a company is being able to provide these platforms, basically these tools to be able to get users to do novel science, to be able, especially within bioprinting. And so by adding in another capability on the space station that's unique, that needs, that fits a need within the space industry, as well as having extra added value to our own users, is something that we think has a lot of value for both the ISS as well as our own users. So we developed what's called the Allevi ZeroG, and we did so with the thought that we would just make the extruder itself. And I'll get into that a little bit later as to why. But first off, we had to think about funding. And so there's always a question as to, how do I get into the space industry? How do I understand, where do I begin? And it usually begins, there's lots of different players that always have to come together, but funding is definitely one of the key ones. And the way that we approached it and we strategized is we really had to bring together different sources, both government as well as some investors. And so understanding, usually it begins with grants. And so understanding where are the grants going, what to the government agencies, what are their calls of interest, and that usually winning one of those grants or being able to get noticed by a government agency is really a great place to begin, because all of a sudden it pulls you out of the crowd. And so we were able to acquire, our first grant, and then from there we began with that traction, and we turned around, we went back to some investors, which the investment community within the space industry is growing in itself. I think there's more and more interest in investing in private companies who have unique directions within space. And so then pooling those together is really how we were able to come up with a sufficient amount of capital to consider pooling together this project and then beginning this as a specific direction. I think on top of that, we also have to think about this as a business case. So we believe that this has enough relevant business value to us so that we can have it be sustainable in the long run. So it's not just about a one-off single project. It's a standalone product that can add business value as well as value to our users and ultimately back to our investors as well. So the last piece was logistics. I think another thing we've found within the space community has been it's a high partnerships is almost essential, being able to, especially as a terrestrial-based company, so being able to create partners with whether it's the government agencies, but also logistics. And so how do we think about getting something that we've built on the ground into space? And that's not expertise we had. And so we ended up asking around and came to find a great partner or a great relationship with Made in Space. And so we've been working with them. And the idea first began that we were thinking about sending our own printer to space, and the logistics around that is very, very complicated. So when we found out Made in Space, the company that had the first 3D printed plastic, they were the first to 3D print plastics on the space station. We found that instead of just sending an entire printer, all we had to do was send the central piece of the printer, which is the extruder. And so by just being able to send that specific piece, we could bring down the cost. We could partner with Made in Space, who has a host of experience around the space industry, and also be able to gain traction with the funding to make the project actually begin in momentum towards the direction of success. And so the design considerations that we went into thinking about is it had to be small, it had to be lightweight, easily accessible, but also thinking about what are the important parameters that we wanted to begin to add so that we could get out the ability to print out biomaterials. And so I think an important distinction here is we actually we've approached this in terms of it's an extruder that is just biomaterial based. So I think it's really the first step. Its offering is going to be for being able to test out biomaterials, and not necessarily at cells, because that adds a layer of complexity, another added environment that's needed to be included. But at the same time, it provides an easy to use but yet powerful method to be able to experiment with biomaterials in space to achieve different relevant geometries. And so that's really that's the goal, because I think what is the goal of all of this? And I think part of it is understanding what are the constraints and what are the values of doing experiments within microgravity. And so microgravity is a very unique environment. It brings about unique properties. And just as we've had to do with bioprinting here on the ground, which is at the beginning we didn't understand what are all the constraints and values of being able to print and pattern cells. We've come a long way to understand that through scientific experimentation and repetition. In that same direction, we believe that by providing this and going through experiments, what the community in general will be able to understand what are some of the constraints and what are some of the value adds. And in doing so, then we can find those unique applications. And that's really, I think, one of the ultimate goals of the ISS, which is how do we find those applications which are not just research but product based, and really making an industry out of this space environment. And so with that, I'd like to conclude and thank you all for your attention.